Hello! Today we will look at the 10 best books I've read in the previous year. I know it's February, a bit late for such a list, but I've had enough time to reflect. The only criteria for the list is that I read the book in 2024. The publication time doesn't matter, and English is not my primary language. So be ready for some very hard Slavic mispronunciations, but I hope you kind of manage. Without further ado, let's start at number 10. We are talking about Mercy of Gods. From authors James S.A. Corey, it's Daniel Abraham and T. Frank, better known for their Expanse series. I really like The Expanse. It has some flaws, but I still think it's one of the best contemporary space operas. It is epic, it is fun, it is very approachable. It is especially great to introduce new people into the genre. Why I think The Expanse worked really well, why it's so approachable, are the well-rounded characters and easy to grasp start. So not much weird space opera stuff like cosmic consciousness, mysterious alien artifacts, new gods, and all those weird stuff that comes later, typically in a space opera. Their new book does start a bit more weird immediately, but in its core it's still a pretty simple story of a first contact, which goes wrong, kinda. I guess, we will see in the later books. Luckily for us, the characterization is again really good. Also the ideas, the general concept, how this first contact is very fun, very gripping. There's a lots of high tension drama and it's written well. This drama is witnessed through different characters, but always from their point of view. We read their thoughts, and the decisions of the characters and their motives are very well defined. So the choices they make in the insane situation are hard but logical. And this is what you want in a science fiction. It's like a mega summer science fiction blockbuster, but with good characterization, which makes it feel very intimate. Still, it's a space opera. Fortunately, quite light on the typical science fiction space magic like faster than light, travel, teleportations, Dyson spheres, and so on and so on. There is, however, a lot of biotechnology, biochemistry talk, since the main protagonists are scientists, and this was actually a bonus for me because science, biotech is also my background, so that parts were written with a lot of care and it was believable enough even for me. So overall, the book The Mercy of Gods at number 10 is very easy to read. It is thrilling, enjoyable. I think it's a great start of a new series from the established author duo. However, if you are not familiar with their work and the space opera genre in general, I would rather recommend the Expanse series. Their previous 9-book long series concluded, good ending, I love it, as a better introduction to their worlds. So yeah, let's continue with number 9. I'm holding 3 books. I'm cheating, so we have a whole series here. It's another science fiction, but this time leaning more into space fantasy, I would say. I'm talking about the Eisenhorn series, Xenos, then Maleus, and Hereticus. It is from Dan Abnett. He's an insanely prolific, if you don't believe me, check his Wikipedia, very prolific writer that writes a lot in the Warhammer canon as well, and he really knows how to write understandably, tight, and a style that is very easily approachable. They are from the Warhammer 40k universe. It's a grimdark future where everything and anything is war, basically. We have empires that are clashing between each other, a great human empire against all of the different alien species and gods and so on. So going into this, I had some knowledge of the Warhammer 40k lore, the God Emperor, the Chaos, the Warp, and so on. Even in my childhood, I tried to paint some orc armies, and later during COVID, I actually managed to paint around 500 or I don't know, maybe 700 points worth of Dead Guard Marines and some of their demons. Right now this project is on hold, waiting for the next lockdown. I even read some books from Horus Heresy. This is the cornerstones book series of the Warhammer, the main origin of lore and so on, which were, in my opinion, okay at most. I get it, they're essential for the canon, but they were kind of dull, too melodramatic. The motives for the corruption are kind of whatever, not really what I was hoping for and how the books explored them. So going into the Eisenhorn series, I really didn't expect much. And goddamn, I was pleasantly surprised. Probably in the first third of the first book, it happens more than 2 books in the Horus Heresy. There is so more schlocky action just all over the place. It's wild. So yeah, I really think the Eisenhorn is a perfect starting point if you are interested in Warhammer 40k. Our main guy, Gregor Eisenhorn, is an inquisitor of the human empire and fights against the chaos corruption. So we have great side characters, lots of action, good progression to understand their motives, his dilemmas, and eventual urges for the corruption. It is a detective thriller in space. Basically, it's more like Guardians of the Galaxy, super fun, great tempo. So yeah, during the summer, our dog had baby pups, and during first few weeks, even a month, this was our first time having baby pups at home, you kind of need to help the mother dog in their upbringing, so we are on guard and we were basically watching them 24/7 with my sow. And while I was watching them, I was actually sitting in the litter box reading Eisenhorn series out loud and slowly indoctrinating them into the Warhammer lore. A great little growing up moment with my baby pups. So yeah, the Eisenhorn series, it is well written, very easy to read, very understandable what is happening, light, super fun, action-packed, epic. So what more do you want in a Warhammer 40k canon? So it's a stupid dumb book for summer, but done really, 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 really well. Moving on, at number 8, we have another science fiction. This time it is a hard classic. It's The Dispossessed from the great late Ursula Le Guin. She was a transcendental voice in the science fiction fantasy world. Her novels are usually packed with societal and philosophical ideas on what is to be human, the autonomy of individual in every way and form. She is super cool, a progressive lady, a real giant in the genre. Knowing all this before I went into the book, you are almost set up to be disappointed. But luckily for me, The Dispossessed is just that good. It met the expectations completely. It is very calm, very reflective. The main protagonist, Shavek, is a scientist, a physicist. His dilemmas and struggles are coming from the societal differences between the capitalist world and the anarchic socialist utopia world, where each is afraid of the ideas from the other. It is a beautiful, believable story, packed with potent and important ideas. I think way ahead of its time. It was published in 1974 and just shows the mastery of the author and why she's considered as one of the greatest. And when we talk about the big three, the greatest 3 science fiction writers, we talk about Asimov, Clarke, and Heinlein. And compared to them, Ursula is a lot more human, more focused on the person's side of things. And in my opinion, her works are aging better than the stuff from the big three. The only other thing I read from her is The Left Hand of Darkness. It is great, but I do think The Dispossessed is a superior novel. So if you have any interest in the great work of the late Ursula Le Guin, I would start at The Dispossessed. If you have any other thoughts where to start with her works, please let me know in the comments. Moving on, we have now something completely different. Technically not a science fiction, but hear me out. It's from Ballard, a little novel called Crash. It was written in 1973, and I think it's basically a cyberpunk before cyberpunk. You could label it as a science fiction. It's exploring the marriage between new technologies and the human body. This is packed in a grotesque, erotic novel, fetishizing in great detail the marriage between the human body and the machine. This marriage comes usually in a form of a car crash, and yeah, if that sounds strange, it is. It's an extreme book, beautifully written. Ballard flexes his writing muscles. We are at his total control. It's a masterpiece, but be wary with extreme grotesque violence and sex. I would say everyone should try to read it. It starts with a bang, so after a few first pages you will know if you can stomach it, and if you can, might as well finish. I promise you will never forget this novel. It was also adapted by Cronenberg, I think it was 1996, into a movie, but it loses a lot in the translation. It's a pity, but to be that extremely violent and sexual, you would basically have to create a snuff porn. Yeah, it's hard to sell that. So I plan to do some Ballard reading this year. I really wonder if all of his books are extreme and beautifully written as this one. And if you have any recommendations on Ballard, I will be glad to hear them out. At number 6, we are moving into a relatively new novel, a contemporary coming-of-age story by Gabe Habash called Steven, Florida. It follows a high school wrestler who is completely obsessed with wrestling. It is his only goal and love in his life, the only goal in his life, to a concerning degree. On face value, the themes are a bit bland, not something I would usually pick up, but this one is as extreme as Crash. You are stuck in Steven's head. We read his every thought. So we have this first-person narrative, and Steven doesn't hold back. It's relentless, almost stream of thought, completely obsessive, and unable to really understand most of the normal human interactions. And slowly, while reading, we kind of realize that he's basically a psychopath. It's a really, really good trip. I very enjoyed it. The writing style completely matches the frantic brain of Steven. I love how seamless we are plunged into his world, and yeah, it even made me appreciate the wrestling a bit more. So after reading this while we watched Win-Win with great Paul Giamatti, it actually made me appreciate the wrestling stuff and the movie itself way more. So yeah, kudos to this book. So the inner thought world the author manages to build is fascinating, and then we get to see how this world starts to crumble, and it's great. So great book, absolutely give it a try if any of this sounded somehow interesting. Number 5, we have Satantango, written by László Krasznahorkai. I probably completely butchered that. He's Hungarian author and a long-time collaborator with the great Hungarian film director Belatar. I love Belatar. I first met László as a screenwriter in the movie Werkmeister Harmoniak from Belatar, of course, and this is one of my favorite movies of all time. Going into this book, I actually didn't know that he was the writer of the Werkmeister Harmoniak script. I did know, though, that Satantango, this little book here, was adapted by Belatar as an 8-hour movie that I still haven't seen, but it's definitely on my to-do list. Reading through Satantango, I kept thinking, god damn, this feels like watching a Belatar movie. It is slow, relentless, with different points of view by very questionable, deplorable, poor, broken people. It takes place in some undefined Hungarian village in the middle of nowhere, non-stop rain and mud, with some hints of magical and unexplainable things happening. The bleak writing style enhances this. We see the cover, this relentless rain, and inside we are faced with these never-ending sentences, no punctuations, a solid block of text that keeps pouring over us like the constant dread and rain our characters are facing in their daily dull lives. They are desperately waiting for a miracle that will change something, anything. And then comes along a messianic figure with dubious intentions. This is all I should tell. It's a real classical contemporary novel, postmodern, I guess. It just tells so much with so little. I absolutely loved it. Immediately when I finished it, I put it on my to read again list. But first I will probably see the 8-hour Ballard movie, all 8 hours in one piece. Probably, okay, some toilet breaks, to just experience this constant, dreadful downpour of the text we cannot escape. Love it. At number 4, again, something a bit different. So we have a 4-part graphic novel called Blast. So 4 books by Manu Larcenet, a French comic artist. I first heard of him when there was news that The Road from Cormac McCarthy, a great, very dark post-apocalyptic novel, was being adapted into a comic book. And my brain was okay, yeah, of course, who is doing that? I better check his other work, because adapting that material, yeah, he's my man. And Blast is supposed to be his magnus opus. Of course, let's give it a try. And oh damn, what a dark trip. So good. Very confusing, stream of thought-like narrative. This time we are following a writer, a fat writer that was arrested and is now explaining events that led to his arrest. We slowly, through his very personal recollections, build this bleak, apocalyptic world and the brutal events that are connected to this arrest. Again, it is very dark, violent, maybe in that regard hard to read, but the art is amazing. The narration, the way the author takes control of the narrative, so what he wants us to see, what he wants to explore and what he wants to stay hidden. He really understands how to use the comic book medium for the narrative. It's an amazing story. The character really grows on you, and the twists in the story really start to make you question why you got so attached to him. What the hell are you thinking? The story just keeps on giving. It's like a car crash that you cannot help but stare at. The art fits the whole mind state and feel of the book. So it's mostly in grayscale with occasional outbursts of color, and these are really rare and really powerful. It's a tour de force. You can read it in one sitting, probably. You should. It's that good. It grips you and it doesn't let you go till you finish and get your last blast. Yeah, moving on. At number 3, we have a novel called Butcher's Crossing from John Williams. It is a Western, but a modern Western, where the romantic idea of the Wild West is completely demolished, and we need to face what this Wild West dream is really about. It is really tight and really beautifully written. The sheer joy of just reading the sentences strung together would be probably enough to give it a 5-star rating. But luckily for us, the book also comes with a great road story with incredible characters and their development. Again, similarly as Satantango, Butcher Crossing feels like this classical novella where a lot is communicated with very little. Love that. We are on a journey of escapism and self-discovery of our young college-educated protagonist, Will Andrews, who dreams of Wild West and wants to escape these restrictions of the urban Boston. Will Andrews starts his journey in Butcher's Crossing, a remote town where the only thing that's actually happening there is trait of the buffalo hide, buffalo skin. So he has no other choice but to join the local hunters, and well, he really gets his full share of the Wild West. I can't state enough how beautifully written this book is. What it writes about is actually a bit dark and dreadful, really strong themes of existentialism, consumption, waste, where these urges really come from, and even more important, where do they lead us to. So yeah, this year I made myself a challenge to reread Blood Meridian, this great novel from Cormac McCarthy, and I wanted to read some precursors to the great book. So books that influenced the great Blood Meridian. And Butcher's Crossing was one of those, and boy oh boy, in many regards it completely surpasses it. The sublime way it lays out the themes and the dread that comes with them is so good. Comparing it to Blood Meridian, it is like a surgical scalpel, where Blood Meridian is like a rusty machete. I don't want to give away too much. It's a must read. It's a masterpiece. Usually a book like this would be the crowning jewel of my reading year, but the next two books are just so damn special. And I cannot put this over them. Number 2. Where to start with this one? Actually, it's a 5-book series. Again, I'm cheating a bit, but you cannot really separate them. We are talking about Book of the New Sun by Gene Wolfe, all 5 books of them, including Earth of the New Sun, which ties up the whole thing, kinda, I think. It's a monumental science fiction classic. I could and probably should talk about it for hours and hours, but not in this video. It is a messianic story of Christ-like figure Severian, but set in a far future on Earth, where our sun is kinda dying and the human civilization is at its degenerate end. The humanity had many circles, many civilizations, layers built upon layers, some new, some old technology, indescribable between magic and science. It's like a dark medieval setting with lasers and portals. On its surface, it is more like a Jack Vance Dying Earth type of fantasy sci-fi, but the main plot twist and the grand idea is the most grandest classical sci-fi thing one can find. It demands a lot from the reader. Nothing is really explained. You are there for the ride, and in this amazing alien yet somehow similar world, lots of the book is left for us to interpret. You definitely shouldn't get too hard on yourself if things aren't making sense at first. I really enjoyed how alien and offset everything feels, how the more time we spend with Severian, the more we start to see his influence on as an uncertain narrator and as the Christ-like figure. First book, I stayed for the alien feel, the dying earth, this apocalyptic, weird fantasy landscape. I really like that. But later in the books, I stayed for the grand concepts and their exploration. It is a massive reading project I wanted to tackle for years, and I'm so glad I managed to do that last year, and especially to find the willpower to get through them. It's not an easy read. Usually, I'm very skeptical when a thing is so gate-kept by a certain community, and Book of the New Sun is really a gatekeeping book for the sci-fi nerds, but man did it deliver. After I finished with the reading, I spent probably countless hours online, watching several video essays, talks on this subject, wanting more of this grand thing, watched Gene Wolfe's interviews. I don't like him that much. And I even read a few short stories from Gene Wolfe and his book, The Fifth Head of Cerberus, which wasn't my favorite, but I could see the remnants, how he was testing, building up to do the Book of the New Sun in The Fifth Head of Cerberus. So it was interesting in that regard. So it is amazing, but it is hard to recommend. If you are not the geeky type that has some sci-fi fantasy mileage, it is a very hard book to get in. It is also quite pretentious and self-indulgent, but we are reading Severian writings, so it kind of fits. He's a pretentious prick. Again, hard to recommend, but I will sure probably read this again. The whole damn thing. It's that interesting, fun and good. So at number 1 is one of the best things I've read in my life. It's Hurricane Season, from Fernanda, Melchor. It's a contemporary novel, basically social realism, but so much more. It is bleak, it is hard, it is violent, it is depressing, desperate, but so goddamn powerful. I really struggle to remember any book written with such ferocity, such anger, such power. I actually think you should read this one out loud to really feel the dread, the anger. So yeah, it is similarly as Satantango, written as a wall of text. It really enhances this relentless, never-ending, no paragraphs, stream of thought, almost dreamlike feeling. It is an account of horrible events that led or actually started by killing of a local witch, witnessed from several points of view, interlaced with different intrusive thoughts from several characters. At the very start, we are not even sure if we are just observing some rooted superstition or if there is really some magic at hand. Really intoxicating mix of rage and fear. I think it's an important novel, truly dystopian, apocalyptic in its core. It's what Margaret Atwood did, but instead of Christian fundamentalism ruining the country, here in Hurricane Season we have the poverty that drives the narrative and strongly interjects into autonomy of the human body. I think it is just perfect in how it delivers the story. It talks and brings together the themes of poverty, human rights, autonomy of the body, dynamics between the genders, tensions and horrible consequences and causes. The book is such a rare gem. I'm already looking for something similar ever since. So if you know Hurricane Season, or if you will read Hurricane Season and know anything that's closely similar, especially in the way it writes, this ferocity, this anger, please, for the love of God, write in the comments. So yeah, I've even reread it once. We'll probably do it again. I even have it in this month's our local little book club. I just can't wait to discuss it with my friends. It is demanding, but if you want something truly powerful and unique, look no further. It is absolutely monumental. So yeah, this wraps up my top reads of the year 2024. It was an amazing book year for me. Probably several of these books will end up on my favorite books of all time, I guess, are already there. And yeah, take care and don't be afraid to explore new stuff. Ciao.